Hey, what's up, guys? What's up, Dule? I hope you guys are doing good. I hope finals week is treating y'all good. And basically, the movie I chose for my finals project was Born into Brothels. So, that's what I did my Wakelet presentation on. So, without further ado, let's get it started. So, just a little history. The first question is like a little background on brothels. So, as everyone knows, brothels are like homes that men visit, and they pay prostitutes to have sexual intercourse with them. So, prostitution it's actually been around for a long time, since like 2000 BCE. So, the big problem with like brothels is like, obviously it involves sex trafficking. Many sex workers are kidnapped or, coerced. And, sexual violence is common there and diseases. So, next one. Many babies born into brothels, they endure a very horrific childhood. I mean, they're born into poverty, they experience abuse and maybe even sexual harassment daily. As in the film, such example is, one of the girls even said that, oh, many of the workers were telling her when she's gonna become a prostitute herself. So, I mean, obviously they have to aid in prostitution. And that's very bad because I mean, kids are kids, they're not supposed to know anything about sex. They're supposed to be innocent, just have fun, have like normal lives. And a big problem for them as well is like the environment. Brothels are like really cramped, confined places. They're usually like congested, no AC, and you can get sick very easily there. And also, many of these kids born to prostitutes there, they don't even know who their parents are most of the time. They don't even know who their father is. Because as you know, prostitutes, they usually like sleep with men daily. So, I mean, it's pretty hard to know who your dad is, and that's pretty damaging to a kid. And sometimes not only is a prostitute and her child there, but also a prostitute, her child, and her own mother. So that's like three generations in like one room. So that's obviously pretty cramped. So the next one is, little statistical data, brothels. So, in the film, we see many brothel babies, in the film. So, according to some facts I researched online, there are 14 registered brothels in Bangladesh alone. And more than 20,000 children are born and live in brothels, according to different studies. And according to UNICEF, around 1 to 2 million children are trafficked. That is around 20% of all trafficking victims worldwide. That's almost a quarter, ladies and gentlemen. So, looking at these facts, that's pretty shocking to me because, obviously know that, babies are born into brothels, but I didn't know to which extent. So this is like pretty shocking to me. So the next two, these are pretty much like some sources, the film review, and I just had like a little like review on the film. I wrote my own. So, the film does a fine job of showing like how these children really live. Like, it's like actual reality. It's not like, oh, we're gonna like not show some parts. They show everything. So as we see in the film, these children work in the brothels. One girl even said her day started at 4 a.m. And many of them are even being groomed to become prostitutes themselves, as well as just doing labor, And I think the film does a really good job because it shows like how realistic and how bad it really is. And like, if that doesn't touch you, then man, I don't know what's wrong with you. But yeah, it shows real life experiences. Like even one girl described how her father, her own dad, was gonna sell her. But she was like her grandmother and sister rescued her, but she still lived in poverty. And later in the film, she tried to enroll in school, but it was very hard. So this is like a reality that many of these children have to face. So no, this is the next one. It's a little photo right there. And then the next one's like a YouTube video. It shows how that film actually won an Oscar. Actually, this is a photo from a kid as well. Go to Instagram. It's taking too long, but basically that post it just said the kid, this kid right here, he's just saying, oh, it's hell. Like his life is hell because living in a brothel, as y'all know, it's not fun at all. Let me try to see if it goes again. Yeah, it's not showing up. But yeah. So next, I'm gonna be commenting on the imaging. So the filmmaker, her camera techniques were like outstanding. First of all, most of the pictures in normal color, but sometimes she makes pictures in black and white to show really how bleak and desperate their situation really is. You know, and like some of like her actual footage is actually like crazy. Like for example, she takes a picture of a client kissing a prostitute. Like they're actually about to engage in it, and it really shows like, wow, like this is not fun. And the prostitute, you see her face, she's you see she doesn't enjoy this. So also another part in the film where one of the children, she obviously they work in the prostitution, like in the brothel, and one of the prostitutes, she actually cursed her out. And obviously, like cursing, I mean, we know it's bad, but the word she used for that little child is like just ridiculous. I mean, she said, "Oh, you selfish effing," yeah, you can read it. So, yeah, that's pretty hard choice of words for a child. That's pretty sad. And it also even exposed you, like the filmmaker also exposed us to like not only prostitutes and the children, but even the clients themselves. Like how they acted is pretty sad, And next I'm going to be talking about the interviews. So the interviews, like the filmmaker also interviewed the children, which was another great technique that she used. Basically it let the children have a voice and not only show their lives, but let them have their own testimony, right? So it moved her. The filmmaker even talked about how sorry she felt for the kids, and she even tried to help the kids by enrolling them into school. But obviously, many of them don't have the resources too. So I mean, it just gives you a clear cut exposure to that life and how damaging it is for a child. Next picture. See? So this is it. One of the girls, as you can read, she says, "I keep thinking if I could go someplace else and get an education, I wonder what I could become." Look at that. I mean, you just see how bleak her opportunities are in that brothel. So she just wants to live a normal life. So another aspect that really interested me was the fact that the filmmaker was not there to only film. She, as I said before, she tried to actually actively engage in helping the children. And, in many films, you don't see that. Like, the filmmaker, their job is to just show the reality of it, but they don't actually have, like, they don't actually have a real involvement in it. They just try to expose the life, not actually try to help the children make a better life. But, the filmmaker, not only did she interview the children, teach them how to read, give them books, try to enroll them into school, but she also arranged for one kid, Avijit, to become part of a program in the Netherlands. So she actually helped them out. So, it just shows how much she actually cares about the kids and how much she takes her job seriously. Yeah. So the cultural significance. So, in the film, in India, brothels are, of course, taboo and illegal, like in most countries around the world. But it's a little acceptable because the man, they could, the brothel is like another world to them. They could just go in, do their business, and so the brothel isn't like the main area, like it's not really hidden. So many people, like, they see the children and everything of the prostitutes, but they don't really help them. They actually frown upon them rather than help. Like, the children even describe how they're harassed by strangers outside, and the verbal abuse that they have to go through daily, day in and day out. And the police don't really help that much. And as you can see, like one testimony in the film, one boy described how her mother was a prostitute and she was arrested for it, obviously, but she was always let off the hook. Like, just a little slap on the wrist. And all she had to say was she would not do it again. But of course she had to do it again to feed her family. So yeah. And in fact, many of the children even face fierce resistance from their mothers, like their prostitute mothers, for trying to enroll into school and get proper education. And like, it's hard for them to get education because they need so many pieces of ID that that many of them don't even have. So it just shows how hard it is to get an education for like underprivileged kids in Asia, and just how taboo it is and how much abuse they suffer daily. So they're really stuck. So one aspect that really like shook me was the children. The children, as you can see, they have terrible lives. They suffer day in and day out. They're just workers, literally having no future at all. They don't have fun. Well, the majority, they don't really have fun like normal kids do in education. But, they're still smart. Like in the film, as you can see this background right here, they're smiling all the time. They're so bright. When they interact with the filmmaker, they can read so well and everything. Even the boy, as I said, who went to Amsterdam for a program. So, it just shows that even no matter where you come from, you can still lead an extraordinary life. All right, next one. So I wanted to kind of mix it up a little bit, provide a prime example of this, of a person who was a brothel baby. So Richard Pryor, as many of you know, he's a comedian, back in the 80s and 90s, really funny. But I was surprised, he was actually born in a brothel. His mother was a prostitute, like many of these children. And, his father was a pimp. So, he would actually describe his childhood as hell. And, that just shows another example of how bad it is. And it even affected him. Like, he had depression later on in his career and everything like that. So, last but not least, the reflection. This film, it really moved me. Like, I knew, as I said before, I knew brothel babies existed, and I knew, oh, brothels are bad, but I didn't know exactly how bad it was. I mean, normally us people, like, we see something on the news, like we see something bad happen, like we say, oh, it's really bad. We're sorry. We feel bad about it, but we don't really know how bad it is until we see it in reality, like firsthand experience. Like that just shows you how bad it is. And that, that really, this was an example of that, this film. So, it really broke my heart because, these children, they're so bright, so smart, they smile all the time. But like their conditions are just terrible. Like no person has to go through that, and especially a child. Like this child is supposed to be out having a picnic, like going to Disneyland, but no, they're having these living under these harrowing conditions. And especially as a child, it's bad for an adult, but a child as well. Like your brain develops during that foundation. Like you're doomed right from the start. So that's really bad. And their testimony even hurt even more because they describe how life is hell. They describe how bad it is, and inside the brothel, it's just so depressing, man. You just see these kids, you have no choice but to root for them. But outside, when they're with the filmmaker, it's like they're not even in a brothel anymore. They're just like having fun and they're smiling, being actual kids. And then seeing them going back to the brothel at night, it just hurts a lot, man. It's just sad. So even though they have these bleak conditions, I still feel hope because, of how bright these kids are. Like, they're limitless, They can read, they have potential to do anything. And the film really showed me not only how bad things are, but also how much you can become, regardless of your circumstance. Like, these children are raised in brothels. But yeah, how smart they are and how bright they are. And that just shows you, hey, I don't care where you come from in life, you can still make it from literally anywhere. So yeah, that's it for my presentation. I hope I did a good job explaining the film and everything, and I hope you guys have a good day.